After a single night of playing Luigi's Mansion, I beat the game in a total of 3 hours and 38 minutes. This game is less than 4 hours long, meaning it is completely irredeemable and a complete failure on Nintendo's part. The GameCube will fail. Nintendo, they just produced another great game. So, it's really interesting going back to Luigi's Mansion after all this time because it has clearly become a bit of a classic over the years. It's remembered very, very fondly among fans. Everyone was enthusiastic about it. Everyone was playing this for Halloween. This is something that's aged very, very well. Something that looks great, that has a lot of great iconic moments, is a lot of fun to play, and yet does have a number of very real issues with it. Specifically, the length, specifically, the content, specifically, just how the game doesn't really seem to have, on the surface anyway, a lot of reasons to come back to it. Because on the surface, you have a horror game that's about 4 hours long, that has no multiple endings, no replay value, not a whole lot of reasons to come back to it on the surface. And yet, this is one of those GameCube games that people have been coming back to time and time again for the past 25 years. And it really does come back to the fact that there really is nothing quite like this game. Not even the sequels have been able to capture the very specific vibe and mood of this game. You know, the idea of like Luigi going to this mansion and fighting ghosts seems really out there, especially at the time. And yet, it makes a whole lot of sense and really demonstrates, I think, just how flexible the Mario IP actually is. Something like this could never be done in a game like Grand Theft Auto or BioShock or Mass Effect because, like, oh, well, we want something specific out of our games. But with Mario, the curators can really do whatever they want. They can put out something like this and then put out something like Sunshine the following year and then go on to produce New Super Mario Bros. A couple of years after that. So, what you have here is a very clear demonstration of why Nintendo is at the tippy top of the world of video games, in that they could produce something so distinctly different from their core brand as a launch title and not only have it be accepted by their audience, but have it become an all-time cult classic and a system seller, because this was the game that made me want to get a GameCube back in the day. Looking at this stuff, playing the demos, renting the game, like all of this, like got me fired up about getting a GameCube. It was something that really, really excited me. It was something that I really, really loved, something that like I was really, really excited about, and I felt that this game for a very, very long time was massively disrespected by gamers everywhere. It was very unfairly compared to games like Resident Evil and Silent Hill because allegedly it wasn't as mature or dark as those games, but the reality is this game is actually a lot more fun to actually play. When you get right down to it, Resident Evil and Silent Hill may be more mature and have like tackle darker subject matter and may like have more complex plots, but at the same time, Luigi's Mansion is a lot more fun to actually play with very unique mechanics, with cool boss fights, with all these interesting environments, all these unique mechanics that really Silent Hill could do with. It's so weird like playing Silent Hill and Resident Evil and kind of realizing just how stiff and unresponsive the combat actually is. And you could argue that that's the point, is that you're not supposed to be like some unstoppable force of nature in those games, but at the same time, like the gameplay is not the draw of most horror games. And that's what makes Luigi's Mansion so different. And that's kind of my thought going into this and playing this game again, is that Luigi's Mansion absolutely can be classified as a horror game. And when you classify it as a horror game, it really excels in what it tries to do. It has a lot of interesting environments. It has a lot of interesting boss encounters. It has a lot of interesting unlockables and mechanics and features, right? It's something that has stood the test of time better than its competitors. And it's really interesting to kind of look back and think of why. And this is the horror game that best captured that feeling of exploring a haunted house. Something like Resident Evil or Silent Hill bogged down that feeling by trapping everything behind endless locked doors or monsters or weird key puzzles, while Luigi has you going through a mansion, finding keys, and navigating a mansion the way you should. Like just going from room to room, finding what's there, and then moving on. Like it is incredibly well paced. It really understands its core concept, it understands what it's trying to do, and it executes it flawlessly. So much so that it kind of excels beyond that of any other horror game on the market. You know, Eternal Darkness Sanity's Requiem had a very similar setup where you had the girl going through the mansion, finding things, and then you would unlock like pages of the book and then going to the past. But Eternal Darkness had a way different structure than this, where because while you're still exploring the mansion, like nothing really happens. like in Eternal Darkness, like there's this feeling that something is right around the corner eventually, but nothing really does come after you, at least at first. Luigi's Mansion kind of throws you right into it, right off the bat with all these interesting characters, this setup, the world, the mechanics, all of which are like introduced to you fairly quickly, and it you get through the entire thing in 4 hours. And it seems like you would be underwhelmed by that it wouldn't really deliver or that like you would want more. And to a certain extent, that's true. But what ends up happening is it creates kind of the Super Nintendo phenomenon, right? Where a lot of the best games ever made, Super Metroid, Mario World, A Link to the Past, a lot of those games are games you can beat in a weekend or a single sitting. So Luigi's Mansion absolutely kind of has that same kind of vibe in which it is very short, it is about on par with it's only just a little bit longer than a Metroid game. It has that same vibe of being this really short, well-paced game that's endlessly replayable, and it's something I've been coming back to year after year after year. You know, while more recent games, like say Fatal Frame 5 is that's something I've only gone back to twice. So when you look and compare this game to its competitors, what you get is something that's very entertaining to play, something that's very well paced, something with a lot of interesting aspects to it that really lends itself well to being replayed. It's true there's not a whole lot of value in replaying the game. You don't unlock some super secret modes or costumes, but what you do have is a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, that's really what you're looking for when you're playing a game. And that's why Luigi's Mansion has stomped Silent Hill. Why it stomped Resident Evil is that Nintendo understood that making these horror games fun is their major drawing point for this franchise and for this IP. This game isn't about scaring the player, it's about creating a unique experience around the horror genre and utilizing Luigi as a vehicle to reach younger players, right? This is a very unique horror game and arguably, I would say, one of the most successful ever. It's interesting looking back on this game's legacy and seeing how polarizing this game was when it first came out. How many people were crying about it not being a 3D Mario game or not being what they were expecting. But isn't this exactly what we want? Is new, original, exciting ideas from Nintendo? You know, this isn't necessarily a new IP. It's a Luigi game. You know, it's a character featuring a character from the Mario franchise, but it's a completely new idea that really took its concept and really ran with it to create something fresh, new, and exciting. You know, Pikmin was the new IP, you know, for the launch window of Nintendo GameCube. So, for me, the complaints regarding Luigi's Mansion never really made any sense. And honestly, the fact that they've died down over the years and Luigi's Mansion is seen as much more of an all time classic is something that I'm very, very excited about, especially since the implication is that this is also going to extend to other unfairly hated Nintendo games in the near future. You know, I'm seeing a lot of people who made videos criticizing Devil's Third back in the day kind of walk back their initial complaints of it and saying that it's actually pretty good, right? And Luigi's Mansion, I think, is kind of in the same boat. You know, it's a game that was wildly hated at launch, something that like game journals made fun of. It was the punchline to a joke for a very, very long time. But Nintendo understood exactly what they were doing. They established not only a new Mario spin-off IP, but essentially characterized Luigi as a character. Like they actually sold people Luigi as his own individual character in this game. And you could argue that he's already had this persona in like comics and spin-offs and all that, but official material, but it's the first time you've really seen it executed in a game. And I think it's a major reason why Luigi is such a popular character today is that they n- did this so effectively, so well, and at just the right time. Because after this, Luigi was in Mario and Luigi. He began to blow up and become more of a big deal. There became more of an actual fan base for the character, and a lot of it came from this game. Like Luigi's current popularity can be attributed to this specific release, and I'm very curious to see if something like Princess Peach Showtime, which was similarly made fun of and hated by gamers everywhere, I'm curious if that game is going to have a similar kind of evolution and growth with Princess Peach fans. Uh, People who didn't like Peach initially and then grew to love her after that specific game. I feel as if we are seeing a lot more of that with these characters, and we'll continue to see them for a very, very, very long time.